back, everyone. We're here at CPAC in Florida, sitting down with Representative Tammy Nichols. And Tammy, it's a real pleasure having you on.
Thank you for having me.
So I know you're from Idaho, and there's this big issue going on right now where one of the nearby states is trying to merge to an extent with Idaho. What's going on with this?
Yes, that is Oregon. Oregon has been trying to basically merge a portion of it with our state of Idaho because they don't like what's happening in their state.
And so what's the real story here? Like, how would this work, and is this beneficial to the conservative movement, against the conservative movement? How would this affect Idaho? How would this affect Oregon? You know, what's going on with this?
Right. So right now where it stands is that they were able to gather signatures and basically do an initiative to get this idea on their ballot. There's been an organization that's been around for quite some time in Oregon, and that's all their focus is being able to get part of their state merged in with a more conservative state. And I understand their issues. I feel for them. I really, really do. But I don't think that there's anything that Idaho can really do about that right this moment. So while they're definitely sending a message and letting their government know that they're not happy with what's happening in their state, it'll be interesting to see if it passes. That'll be, of course, the first hurdle if they can get it passed on a ballot. But I think after that, it'll be interesting to see where it goes from there.
Interesting. So maybe it won't actually happen, or how's this looking?
Exactly. Yeah. The chances of it actually going through and for them to succeed into our state it's pretty small. But you never know. I mean, our state might actually look into it. We'll see how it looks.
Now, another big thing we're seeing along these lines is Texas talking about leaving the United States, becoming its own country. And I understand that this is kind of moving to other states as well. Have you seen any movement with this?
You know, I've heard of several states that have talked about it because they're worried about what the feds are going to be doing and how that's going to impact their state. Texas, of course, has an easy out because it's written into their constitution to be able to succeed from the union. And I have been told by several attorneys that are very well known that if they took that first step, they really believe other states would start following that progression. And I don't know if you've seen all the maps that have been floating around on how to divide the states out and take off the coastal areas, and then just the middle would be the more conservative area. But, it's definitely something that you have to keep in mind because we don't know what kind of things might be coming down the pipeline for our states. And if states want to keep their sovereignty, they might have to look into that as an option.
Another thing we're seeing is different states really pushing back against federal law.
Right.
We see Florida, we see Texas really taking stronger stances against federal law. And it's bringing about this new debate right now in the country on where federal law ends and where state law begins.
Sure.
How are you facing this in Idaho?
Yeah, you're right. There's it seems selective though to me because some states can go ahead and defy the federal rules, and the feds don't pay any attention to it. Immigration is one, for instance. Drugs are another one, for instance. And but then if we wanted to do something like that, let's say for guns, I think the feds would probably take notice.
You wouldn't do like a sanctuary city for guns or something like that?
Right. And we're actually trying to do. We've had several cities within our state that have passed resolutions to make themselves a sanctuary city. We're actually strengthening our gun laws, and we have pretty good gun laws on our books right now, but we're trying to strengthen those to make sure that whatever happens at the federal level will not impact the citizens of Idaho. So going back to what you were talking about, though, if states want to keep their sovereignty, they are going to have to take measures to be able to do that. Right now in our legislature, we have been working on either bills that are in response to what's going on with COVID or bills that are for preventative measures for things that might transpire that people are concerned about. So, and I really see that states are going to have to do that because regardless of what happens in D.C. at the federal level, we have to make sure that our states keep their sovereignty.
Now, one of the things a lot of people are looking at is where this is heading with the virus and the lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people think maybe they'll open up soon. The narratives coming out are saying maybe it'll never happen.
Right.
And people are looking at other countries like Israel, where they have this passport system, where basically if you get the vaccine, you're given a passport essentially, and you're allowed more freedom in the society. And it's kind of like freedom is becoming something given to you, not something that you naturally have, right? It's becoming a privilege, not a right.
Right.
Have you heard anything about that model spreading?
Well, interestingly enough, and there's different things. There's other countries that actually have implemented some sort of a passport type program, but as a legislative body in Idaho recently, we were actually sent an email in regards to a company that actually produces vaccine passports. And it had this little clip video with these cute little cartoon characters, and they talk about how great this is going to be, that you just have to have your passport and it will allow you in sporting events and concerts. But the characters in this video also have masks on, so they're still wearing their masks. And, it's really an intrusion of people's rights. We have not done this with any other virus. We have not gone to this extreme with any other virus. And while viruses are a concern, I don't believe that they trump the Constitution. They definitely don't trump people's rights. And I think moving in that direction is very Orwellian in nature.
Again, federal government is pushing forward on a lot of things right now.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big ones is this Equality Act.
Yes.
Can local states do anything to separate themselves from that, or once that's passed, that becomes the way things have to be in these local states?
No, states can. Back in the 60s, we had the Equal Rights Amendment movement, and that was a big issue. There was a lot of support to pass that, and the Equal Rights Amendment is very, very similar to the Equality Act that we have now. It's just on steroids, basically. And many, many states did pass that. They needed so many states to be able to pass it in their states to make it a national thing. In fact, though, many states, after they passed it, rescinded the ERA, and so we will have to probably take the same measures. Again, it goes back to state sovereignty and states' rights, and the stuff that is in that bill, I was looking at it last night, is absolutely asinine. I can't even believe they're trying to push some of this stuff, but nothing surprises me anymore, unfortunately. So yeah, states will have to take a stand again and tell the federal government to basically go pound sand, that they're not going to be involved in it. They're not going to force their people in their state to have to adhere to it.
Now, Tammy, I had you on Crossroads a while back. We were talking about the kinds of education they're putting into schools, and I know that you were really digging into some of the sex ed programs they were implementing, and some of the really shockingly extreme things they were putting into education systems. Do you see, now first off, what are some of the more shocking things you're seeing? What is the agenda of it?
Right.
And do you see this being embodied within this Equality Act as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, so at that time, they're still trying to push a lot of the sex and education. We see states such as California that mandated it into their curriculum, and so there is no provision for parents to be able to opt out of it. We've still seen it even in our state of Idaho, where we've had things like that creeping into different subjects like math and science. In fact, we had a group of our college students that recently came and talked to us as a legislative body in regards to the things that they're being taught. Things on white privilege and diversity and the critical race theory, and they're in subjects such as economics and biology, that there are no sexes, that everything's fluid, there's no gender, there's no sex. And these are kids that are trying to go into medicine, and you're going to tell them that the very basics don't even exist anymore. So yeah, there's a lot of concern, and people really need to watch what's happening in education. We have these kids that are coming out of our system, and they're completely indoctrinated, and it's happening in the education system.
The next big area is free speech, and we see, of course, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, doing a lot of what seems to be politically based censorship.
Right.
And we see now states getting together and starting to push back on that, Florida and Texas being the two main ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you see other states taking similar stances on that as well? Is there any movement in Idaho, for example?
Yeah, I do see other states, because there is a big concern with what's transpiring. I mean, if a platform that's acting as a publisher can censor the president, then anything's open. So yes, there is some legislation. We actually are looking at modeling some of it after what Florida is doing. We're tweaking it just a little bit to make it more Idaho, but the concern is high enough in our state that we felt it was necessary to go ahead and start working on some legislation. So we should have that out probably within about a week week and ready to go. I saw where Poland is actually doing a country, thing on censorship. They're actually, I believe their fine's $2.2 million for the companies. But in my mind, and the issue comes to where, okay, these are private entities, these are private businesses, but they're functioning under a federal provision that's allowing them special privileges to be able to function as a platform. But to me, they have gone ahead and made it to where they have given up that right because they're functioning now as a publisher and a platform, and under, I believe it's Section 230, they can't be both. So based on that, I believe that we have the diligence to go ahead and make things necessary because the feds are not going to do it. They're not going to stop the censorship from happening right now. So again, it goes back to the states. The states have to take the initiative and go ahead and work on legislation to pass it to try to stop the censorship.
Now, I know a lot of Americans right now are concerned. Mm-hmm. They see these really extreme policies getting pushed through. They're afraid of losing their right to have guns. They're afraid of losing the right to free speech. Right. They're afraid of losing their right to, choose their gender identity and what they choose to believe in or not believe in.
Absolutely.
They're afraid of, really the kinds of totalitarian policies being implemented under the guise of this virus, where freedom of movement is restricted, and the ideas of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness they're
just gone.
Where's our liberty at this point, right? Government can override all of it. People are wondering now what can be done about it, and a big question is, to what degree can states push back against this? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so states can actually do a lot. It just depends on how strong the state's governmental body is. In some states you have a really strong governor, like Florida, for instance, that is actually pushing back on that. But you kind of have to have a team approach with it. Your governor has to be strong, your AG has to be strong, your legislative body has to be strong, because without those working together, they're fighting against each other and then nothing gets accomplished. Yeah. So the states do have to take the control back. They have to exercise their sovereignty, and they have to do what they need to do within the system to be able to balance it out so that people can keep their freedoms, that they can keep their rights, and that they can function the way that they're supposed to with liberty and under the Constitution. And
of course, with this as well, there's the issue of gatekeepers within the political system. A lot of people don't get this when they think about, this governor won't do it, it won't pass this, but sometimes it's one guy further down the chain who blocks something and it can't actually move up. What are the gatekeepers in politics, and how does this really restrict things?
Usually what you have, in Idaho especially, we have our chairmen that are acting as gatekeepers, and they usually function under what leadership wants to have happen. So there's kind of this chain of command that takes place. Sometimes the governor could be involved with it, but most of the time it's between leadership and the chairman. And so if you have a piece of legislation, like for instance, I have a bill that has to do with mandating or forcing vaccinations, right? It's a very hot topic. People are very concerned about it. We have people that move from California into Idaho to get away from that because they did mandate it in California. And so they want to make sure that remains free and is a choice. But I cannot get the chairman of our Health and Welfare Committee to actually hear the bill. He won't even give it a print hearing, which is just the first step in introductory hearing to see if the idea is even worthy of pursuing. Again, I've told him the concern and that people really want this to be heard, and he just won't have anything to do with it. So because of that, a lot of really good bills, the good pieces of legislation are drawered or kept from being able to discuss because the chairman won't allow it.
And Tammy, just last question. For a lot of Americans who are feeling hopeless right now, who don't know what to do and feel that their freedoms are being taken away from them, and kind of given the new grassroots movement we actually really see starting up here, especially Trump launching this new office of the former president. Yeah. What would you tell people in terms of what the future holds? For these people kind of like they're losing hope, I guess. What would you tell them?
Right. Well, this has been a very different time period, and a lot of people have lost hope because they don't feel that they have any control over what's going on. But we are actually in a really good time period with what Trump has been doing. is almost started another Tea Party movement, if you will. And the Tea Party was very grassroots oriented. It started really quickly. They built up a lot of momentum, but of course they didn't last for very long. So what I tell people right now is they need to be involved at their most local level of government. That is where they actually need to start. So they have to do two things: get involved. Each state has some sort of a central committee, and so you can get involved at that level. In Idaho, we have precinct committee positions, so people can run for those, and that gets them at the very basic local level. School boards, city councils, commissioner seats, those are all very important, so people can get involved in that. But the other thing is that you have to understand the system. So I tell people government and politics is a game in essence. But in order to play the game, you have to know the rules. And if you don't know the rules, then you can be taken advantage of. So you have to understand the system of government and how people are supposed to function, because our government was created for being a government by the people, and that was what our founders saw and wanted to have happen, is they wanted the people to be involved with that most fundamental principle, is that it is a government by the people. But people have to speak up, they have to stand up, they have to be strong. I know it can be hard. The liberals are very good at what I call label lynching, where they call you names and try to tear you down and even get you fired from your job or whatever the case may be. But it's really important, because I really believe that's where the change is going to happen, is at the local level and with the people actually doing it.
And Tammy Nichols, real pleasure having you on Crossroads.
Thank you. Appreciate it.